Ariel from Icon for Hire. How's it going?
It's going great. It's a nice, chilly morning here. It's kind of cozy. I like it.
Yeah, where are you right now?
Nashville, how about you?
Oh, Nashville. Okay, I'm in Los Angeles right now.
Awesome.
It was getting chilly, and then all of a sudden, for the past couple days, it's been back to Southern California summer weather, which isn't a bad thing. But I was kind of I was kind of stoked on the fall weather, so hopefully
I
we'll
know
get
it's
back to it soon.
exactly what we're having, the cozy sweater vibes right now.
Hmm.
Feeling it all. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it was a hot summer, so I was like, I'm liking this cooler weather, and I can actually start wearing jackets and all that again. But
Exactly.
I think it's just a fluke. I think there's something in California called Santa Ana winds that starts. It's like these hot desert winds that blow through every now and then. I think that's what's going on.
Gotcha.
So Ariel, tell us how you got into music.
I got into music maybe through my older sister at a very young age. She was 4 years older than me, and so everything she did was just so cool. And I still view her today in a untouchable, above the rest way. Her opinion is just gold to me. And so, yeah, I kind of would start singing with her. And then around 12, I discovered rock music. And then I switched from just wanting to be like a singer to like a rock and roll artist. And I was going to find my dream band and everything. So then I started this quest to try to find my bandmates and put together a band. And I did a few failed, you can't even call them bands, but I thought I was in a band. Looking back, I was not in a band. I was just with my friends jamming or whatever. And then I didn't, meet my current bandmate, Shawn, until I was 18.
Was your sister into rock music too, or was that kind of something that you kind of discovered on your own after she kind of got you into music?
She was 4 years older and cooler than me. So she was always 4 years ahead of me in
Right,
everything.
right.
And so we actually had a unique childhood. We were raised very conservatively, very strictly. And so our parents didn't approve of much music at all. And so my sister, as she started to bring more records and CDs and stuff in the house, they came home from church one day and they said that we were no longer allowed to listen to rock music. So they took all our records, all our CDs, our collections, and they told us that they buried them in the backyard, which I don't think they actually did. But
Right.
I wrote a whole song about this, basically being okay, Mom, how messed up was that? So that's on our second album. And they have since totally apologized. They're awesome. We have no, bad blood or anything. But at the time, that was a big deal in our household for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's funny and ironic, shows what happens when you say not to press the red button. Ariel
Nope.
just go ahead and makes that her career then.
They just made me a monster. Yeah.
Right.
But it worked out. This is definitely my thing. I feel very at home in this space being a musician. I really enjoyed it. It really resonates with my soul. And so I feel like I probably would have landed on it anyway, but that didn't hurt for sure.
Right. It's funny. I've talked to multiple artists, and I can personally relate to just the power of the cooler older sibling or older cousin or even friend's older brother or sister. It's and can I ask, did your sister go into music as well, or did she go off to have a more regular job?
More traditional, but I feel like she lives through me, and I involve her in everything. I send her the first version of everything. She will watch this interview. She has Google alerts for everything about our band. She tells me things about our band I don't know about. So she is living this with me for sure.
Right. And I feel
you.
like that's the MO, because I feel like they don't know the power of their influence.
Yeah.
You put rock music or music in general on a pedestal because of her, because they were on a pedestal. And so you probably, turns out you made it a bigger part of your life than they did.
Yeah.
So okay, so you get into music, you're starting to jam with some what almost can be called bands. And when was this, in high school?
Yeah. So 10th grade, I got together with some of my friends. And then till then, I just kept trying to recruit people. So that was my focus, my MO. Every time I met a new person, I was just trying to get them to start a band with me. I was trying to figure out if they played an instrument, if they wanted to do this with me. So that's I based my friends based on if they could play instruments that I needed in my band or not. And so I probably had 3 little ones. We never played real shows or anything though. And then until when I was 18.
Well, you said you started that when you were 10?
When I was no, 10th
Oh,
grade.
10th grade,
Sorry.
10th grade.
Yeah,
Okay, I was
sorry.
gonna say that's pretty young.
I know
Uh,
that would be impressive. Yeah.
so you start finding friends at high school, and so you're already learning, the power of surrounding yourself with people who are interested in the same thing. And then, so when do you kind of find like a lineup that you like, and then and maybe start playing some shows, or playing for classmates, or what were some of those first memories of live shows?
Yeah, that happened really quickly. So I went to 1 year of college. It wasn't for me. So I went back to my town of Decatur, Illinois, which is where my parents lived. And like 2 days later, I met this guy who my friend told me was a guitar player. And I thought he was really cute. And so I went up and talked to him and I was like, hey, can you teach me guitar? But I didn't want to learn guitar. I just wanted to convince him to start a band with me. And so the next day, I went over to his house. He had a home studio and we started jamming together and we wrote an awful song that we thought was amazing. And then it was on and we haven't stopped hanging out since. And then a few weeks later, we brought in his drummer friend, who was our drummer, Adam, who was with us for, I think, the first 7 or 8 years, but then he ended up leaving to like not be a musician anymore. I get it. It's not for everyone. So then it's just been me and Shawn since. But we started playing our first show about 6 months later at our local Decatur scene at a rock club called Wake the Dead. That was very grimy and seedy and gross and just the perfect place for our first show. It was awesome.
That's quite the venue name. I feel like a lot of venue names are more neutral, but I think that one really makes it obvious what kind of music they're trying to play in there. Although I guess I could go for a lot of different upbeat musics.
Yeah, their sign was made out of like scrap metal parts with like sharp edges and you couldn't read it. And I remember the first time we ever drove through Decatur a few years earlier, I was very upset to be moving there to this small town from the bigger city of Minneapolis where I grew up. And I remember seeing that building and that was like the one spark of hope on this desolate road of stuff I didn't love. And I was like, maybe that will be for me. And then a few years later, I played it for show there. So it was cool.
It sounds like a badass venue.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first shows that you guys started playing together. And so do you guys immediately say, hey, we're gonna make like a real go at this, and we're gonna take it really seriously?
I was so intense, man. I mean, the first time that we played together, like with the guitar player, the drummer, and me, like on this very crappy little sound system in the living room, like trying to have a rehearsal, like I lost my mind. I almost cried. I was so excited. Like this was the most real it had ever been. And I had been waiting my whole life for this to get to feel like I was rehearsing in a real band and not just like trying to play power chords with my friends, So it was very serious because I made them be very serious.
So you're booking shows, and do you remember kind of some of those first maybe pivotal points where you're like, okay, we just did that, and I think we're getting some momentum here?
Yeah, the momentum was really from the live local shows, and I feel bad for bands, well, obviously in the COVID space where that's not an option at all, but I feel like maybe the local scene was a little bit easier back in what was like 07, 08 than it is now. Maybe that's not the case, but there are quite a few venues that have shut down. So we were able to, at the time, really work the ladder system of smaller venues, bigger, bigger, and then grow and do little Midwest touring and little weekend tours. They weren't tours. We thought they were tours, but we were able to invite a bunch of friends from our hometown, specifically Shawn and Adam, guitar player and drummer. They were just really plugged in, really like well known in that town. So they just were able to invite all their friends, which turned into 250 people at our first few shows, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was better. I mean, they weren't fans, they were just friends, but those were actual ticket sales.
It's a lot of friends though,
I know. They were like big partiers. They like hosted ragers, I guess, at their house. This was before my time with them. So because then word got out to promoters that we could sell tickets, we were able to jump on other bills and kind of just leverage it that way.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing. You could be the best band in the your local scene, but if you're not selling tickets, the big band who's coming through town doesn't want you to open for them. All you're gonna do is show them up and not add to the audience at all. So yeah, I've heard that from a few artists, that if you can get your ticket sales up, that'll really help your potential to open for some bigger bands, and if you can fill a room, then why would a venue not want you there?
We opened for some, but I felt like we were headlining a lot even as a young band, and really worked our merch table we were very intentional. I did a bunch of homemade stuff at the merch table. We put a lot of thought into it, spent a lot of time at the merch table, signing, hanging out. So that allowed us to be able to afford to play the shows because we pushed the merch hard and had a bunch of different fun stuff people could connect with. But we still were financing it based on our day jobs. You know, it was not in any way supporting itself.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I mean, if you're filling rooms like that with that many people, you know, you add the merch table into that, you were probably making at least you know, a decent amount of money at that point. So that's cool.
Probably, but like also we didn't really get door slits or a guarantee. You know, when you're still young, you don't really know any better. You don't know to ask. You don't have a booking agent, so you have no leverage.
Right.
Just happy to be there. So
Yeah. That's true. So you are, you know, you guys are doing these shows with a lot of people showing up. At what point do people start to take notice? Because I know at some point you eventually signed to a label. Who you know, I know you're not with right now, but tell me a little bit about how you guys caught their attention.
Well, they reached out to us on MySpace, and they heard about us through a podcast interview that I did. So the podcaster was like, "Hey, I think this label would be into you guys. I'm going to pass your information along." So that was just dumb luck, really.
Yeah.
Well, depending on how you look at it, that label wasn't like a best fit for us. But
right.
That was after we'd been a band for 2 years, and at the same time, there was another label that was also interested in us. So 2, maybe 3 kind of surfaced right around the same time. I don't know if that was because of our banging MySpace page or what. No, seriously, like we put so much time and attention. I don't even know if you were in a band at the time, like, but you could buy like skins for your MySpace page, and we were like trying to save up to pimp it out and make it like this so we could look like a real band and really professional. Yeah.
I remember the templates.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember if I bought any back in the day. I might have. You know, MySpace was the thing. MySpace was it, you know.
It was all there was. It was everything. Yeah.
You know, just thinking back to MySpace, it was really, I think what ruined it was how spammy it got, you know, and I think, you know, Instagram and Facebook could, you know, maybe learn something from that. But they, and I'm sure they have, you know, they've definitely cleaned it up a lot. But how cool was it that it was like literally the social network, and it kind of centered around music, you know, like that was pretty rad, you know. And the customization part was really cool, you know. That, you know, you got your player, you got your top friends, you got your template, you know, and
know, and we would try to add like bigger bands as our top friends to make it look like we were like more in the scene than we were. I would like watch our YouTube videos on repeat to try to get the view count up, like you know. I mean, and there was like the player count on how many times people had played your song. I was like telling my mom to play it on repeat. Yeah. And obviously it worked because we got the record labels interested.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so did MySpace play a role, do you think, aside from, you know, just that connection with the podcast, at being friends with them, do you think that played a role in your early success? Because I feel like that was a key thing for a lot of bands around that time.
Yeah, I think just the way that we use social media now to connect with our audience, to let them know about shows, to promote music. Same thing. We were pretty involved and active at the time, you know, replying to comments and kind of getting to know our audience. We didn't have an audience until then. And so we were getting to know what type of people we had that were attracted to our music and what they liked about it. And that obviously helped us moving forward when we decided what we wanted kind of music to continue to make, you know. So it helped us build that core fan base. And we translated that into the way we showed up on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter moving forward. We are pretty active on our socials, and we are able to stay independent because we have a pretty active audience on there that we're able to reach. So it kind of started on MySpace.
Right. Do you remember maybe some of the points where you were thinking about maybe starting to tour and doing more shows outside of your area?
Yeah. Oh God. I mean, I'm just laughing because like there were some great promoters, and there were some promoters that were not promoters that, you know, was kind of shady stuff. And there was a lot of sleeping on basement floors, you know, no money for hotels. Obviously there's a lot of sleeping in the van, like getting woken up with a cop banging on the door overnight. Like we slept in the van in Maine in negative 11 degrees. Like just sheesh. So we were really hustling, grinding, really trying to tour while also seeing if we could keep our day jobs as long as we could. And then the pivotal point happened in 2010 or 2011 where we got on a couple tours. So we started, it's so interesting. We started opening on tours, but that was like the only time, like 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14 was the only chunk that we've opened. Since then, we've only headlined, and just because that's kind of worked better for us. So there was that little span of time where we did maybe, I don't know, 6 tours as an opener, but not since then.
Do you feel like that helped, generate some momentum for you though? Do you feel like you won some fans over during those tours?
Yeah, I specifically think of one with Hollywood Undead in 2014 in Europe. That was our first big European tour.
It's funny you mentioned Hollywood Undead because I was just thinking of them when I was thinking of quote unquote bands who really, made MySpace work for them. But yeah, go ahead. They were one of like, I remember certain characters from the MySpace days. They were they were huge on MySpace. Do you remember Tila Tequila? Remember how she was just like a personality on MySpace, and then she got like her own show on MTV and everything. It was
she's still out there doing stuff for the world.
I don't know what she's up to nowadays, but those are just some of the names. Actually, now like nostalgia is coming back, and I think I'm thinking of some other ones too. But yeah, go ahead. Didn't mean to derail you.
No. I want to stay on this path. I was getting my haircut about a year ago, and I started talking to this guy, and we got on the topic of MySpace. He probably brought it up, only to tell me that he was like a huge YouTube celebrity, and he mentioned his name, and I looked like, his name was Danny something. He was like this very emo 2007 kind of guy that was like legendary on there, and I was just so excited to get to meet him again in his early 30s or whatever. But anyway,
sounds familiar.
Yeah, touring. What was the question?
I was you were saying especially maybe picked up some fans along the way with Hollywood Undead.
Yes, and so since then we've been able to go back to Europe and do a bunch of headlining tours 3 or 4 times. Really successful, have gone really well. We really love going over there, and a lot of times we hear that people first found out about us through that tour. So
okay, yeah, those guys are still big. They're still doing it. I still, it's interesting. I haven't kept up much with what they're doing, but I remember back then it was like a whole bunch of them, and they were all wearing masks, so you couldn't tell like what they looked like and everything. I don't know if that's still the MO, but pretty cool. So you pick up some fans along the way, doing some opening acts, but mostly been doing headlining tours. So do you feel like the live shows are and social media, are those kind of your 2 main ways that you've been accruing fans over the years?
Probably. I feel that the way that most people become from our space go from a casual listener to a fan is they connect with something lyrically. Maybe that's because I write the lyrics, so I'm just giving myself too much credit. But we often hear that people hear a song and then they kind of dig into it, and then they connect with it pretty intensely. And we are lucky enough to have fans that have been fans for years, so they're kind of like lifers. At least I hope they are. I hope you're lifers, guys. And so I think that's been important too, to create that connection. And there are different ways that you can approach doing a live show and touring. You can't just kind of like grind it and do it, but you can also make the most of every opportunity by making sure your set is really emotional and that you're really present, you're really connecting with your audience, making sure that you're meeting fans one-on-one every single show, making sure that you're signing, being super available. That made it have impact, I think. And I think if we hadn't done it that way, which we didn't do it that way to create fans, we did it because it felt best for us. It felt more like, a good way to live your life, connecting with people, obviously, versus being isolated. But that, I think, has really helped us grow. Same thing on social media. It's not just that we do hashtags. We don't even do hashtags. It's the DMs where we're talking with people back and forth. It's replying to comments. It's being engaged, inviting fans into our space and into our world. I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, that personal connection. Well, you guys, obviously are doing great. Via that personal connection you've made with fans. You've got millions of streams on platforms, and you 4-5 albums later are here now, and you just released your new single Seeds. What's that about? But can you tell me a little bit about Seeds?
Yeah, it's just about growth. So it's just using the analogy of obviously seeds in the ground growing, and it's about being an underground band and how we're able to just kind of carve out our own space in the world. And a lot of times, something can can be underground for a long time, and then it can kind of like shoot up. And we've been in our own lane, keeping our heads down, doing our own thing without a bunch of mainstream recognition. And we're totally okay with that, because what we've got going over here on the side is really life-giving for us. It really like fulfills us personally. It makes us feel like we're like, kind of like I said, living our lives in a way that we can like feel good about, go to sleep at night. I feel very personally fulfilled with our audience, with our life choices, even though we're not the biggest band in the world. And I think I didn't always feel that way. I used to feel like that endless hunger to like always be growing and going on to the next thing. And that was freaking exhausting. So I have a lot of peace just being really grateful for our awesome fans and the fact I get to make music full time. It's freaking great. So Seeds is kind of like a celebration of that, just doing it our own way.
Yeah, I mean, it's you guys. I mean, you're being humble right now, but you guys are doing awesome, and it's funny because with your humbleness, just this month alone, I'm looking at your Spotify right now. You had you had 500,000, monthly listeners this month on on Spotify. You know what I mean? And it's nice that you're still humble about it. There are artists out there who have maybe like 1,000 listeners this month, and they don't exhibit your humbleness. So it's cool that you guys still have that humbleness, and simultaneously having such great success. So you dropped the new single Seeds, and it also has the song Curse or Cure on that single. And you have an LP planned for early 2021, right?
Yes, February 19th, our 4th full-length studio album is coming, and it's called Amorphous, and we're really excited about it.
How's that differ from your last album? Is it kind of picking up where that left off, or are there any distinguishing characteristics of it?
Yeah, I think we learned a lot on our album before this, because it was our first one fully independent. So we actually crowdfunded number 3 and number 4, the one that's about to come out. And so with number 3, we really tried to go directly to our audience, the Kickstarter backers, and ask them like, hey, what do you want exactly? And we also tried to give to them, but at the same time, that was the first album we made without our drummer. And so we didn't use live studio drums. And looking back, I feel like that's something that this new album does have that really added a lot. And so it was probably important. We probably should have done that the 3rd time, but it was our first time without a drummer, so we didn't know how important drummers are. Like these are things you learn. But I feel like what's different this time around is we got to say a lot that was really important to us on the 3rd album without the label, just getting to do exactly what we wanted, play around. There's a lot of experimentation, a lot of production stuff that Shawn got to do that maybe we wouldn't have otherwise done. And this time it felt a little bit more like returning to our roots, and a little bit more like true to that rock and roll spirit, a little bit, I don't know, there's still some like hip hop and pop stuff on there, but there's this aggression through the whole thing, which might also be because we did it during COVID. So
yeah, that makes sense. Well, we are going to look out for the new LP. In the meantime, we'll be listening to the new single and the old album, Still Can't Kill Us. You Can't Kill Us, Icon for Hire. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Ariel. I feel like I know the band a little bit better. I kind of went on the journey with you. We like to end the interview by asking, if you had one piece of advice to offer aspiring artists, what would it be?
I take this very seriously, because
I
was the person who would listen to interviews like this and be like, let me get my notebook. She's got the thing. What's the thing? I think the thing is to stay true to who you are, because I hope it's true that eventually pays off. I mean, I can't make promises. Maybe it doesn't always, but I think it's probably more important than focusing on doing an external step, like make sure that you always, rub shoulders with the right people. Like connecting is important, but I feel like what's had the most impact in my life is feeling good about this kind of custom built path that we've created for ourselves. And for us, that's been DIY. Like doing everything ourselves has been really rewarding, and that's really worked. Maybe that's not going to be everyone's thing. Maybe people are going to take different paths, but maybe be mindful and intentional to make sure that the path you're on is something that does resonate with you and fits with you. Because I've seen so many bands burn out, they do it for 10 years, then they can't do it anymore because it can be very soul sucking. This industry can be. But when you're doing it very focused on what matters to you and not letting outside noises get in your head and just kind of going your own way, I feel like it makes you a little bit more immune to that. So you're able to have longevity, which in turn could maybe lead to external success as well. So that's what I would say. That was a long answer.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's great. I mean, it's true. I mean, I think Steve Jobs said something like that. You know, you're not going to have the energy to do things that are hard unless you're passionate about it, and you're not going to be able to be passionate about it if you're not doing your own thing. You know.